Hello and welcome to Backtubes. As always, I am joined by Jay. Say hi.
Hello.
And by Dan.
Hello.
Today we venture into new territory for all of us, I think. We are going to be looking at beating. This video is going to be split into 3 parts, because obviously beating is quite a big topic and we want to do it the justice it deserves while matching people's attention span. So, this is what we've got. So, beating 101. In this part, we are going to be looking at the beater's role in a team and playing with control. That's going to be both offense and defense, where you should set up, how you should deploy them, what they should be doing and looking for. In part 2, we're going to look at regaining control when we inevitably lose it. And then the final part, we're going to be looking at Snitch on pitch and how priorities change and how the game changes with that. And on the right, you can see a more detailed breakdown. But that's going to be our gist. We're going to try and go through all of that. We're not going to focus today on how to throw, because we've done that video, and you can watch Bill Orange smash it in one of our other videos on our website or on our YouTube channel. So we are now looking more at the position, not the fundamental, the technicalities. Okay, so let's get on with it. So terminology, we're going to use this just to be standardized across what we're doing. Lots of teams have lots of different words and things for beaters. Some use armed and unarmed. Some use gender wrongly. And then, but we're going to use these terms, which was engage beater and our free beater. So our engage beater is the one that's going to be leading the defense and the offense, okay? When they're going to look to engage enemy players, both beaters and chasers, they're looking to start that fight. When it's one bludger, they're the ones that's going to have the bludger. And when we've got 2 bludgers, they're the one that's going to be more aggressive. Our free beater, when we don't have control, is going to be unarmed. They're going to be screening, looking to be a nuisance. And when we have 2 bludgers, they're going to be the one that reacts to the beater fight that the engage beater is set up first. Okay, so we've got engage and free. Essentially, Jay, anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, I think if your team's really struggling to understand it, how you can boil it down is the engage beater is creating an opportunity and the free beater is reacting to the opportunity that's been created. So one's creating the play and the other's reacting to the play is the simplest way to explain it to your new players.
And maybe that'll get added to the PowerPoint. Yeah, sorry.
Do you have people that are normally more engagey beaters and more that prefer that as a play style, or do you just have to know how to do both?
Within a set, there'll be people who take the lead on that. Ideally, everybody can do everything, as you would think, because you might be with a different set, or you might find yourself with a bludger, but normally your sets will have an engage beater and a free beater. So an example would be, for Raptors, Lucy is our engage beater, and then Dan would be our free beater. For LQC, it might be Jacopo is the engage beater, Karina is the free beater. But that doesn't mean they can't swap roles depending on the situation. It's just how it's set up to start with. Who's more comfortable leading that or making that play is who starts as your engage. Right, the other terminology we're going to come on to that might just get picked up that beaters use, and we just want to make sure we're all crystal clear on it, so that when you're teaching it to your teams or you're trying to you overhear discussions about it, you kind of know what we're looking at. So the 2 big ones are pivot and pincer. Jay, do you want to go into what those kind of mean?
Yeah, so pivot is really, really simple. It's just working on a system where the more one beater goes forwards, the other one hangs back. So you're working on a pivot system. If you imagine that there's a cord tied between your 2 beaters, you want to keep that cord nice and tight. And the way you're going to do that is as one moves forward, the other one moves backward, okay? So as one applies more pressure or goes into a more pressurized scenario, the other is free to react and also has a better field of view and can cover more open space, okay? Pincer is much more of an aggressive move. It gets its name from, obviously, the crustacean of a crab or a lobster pincering in, and it's where you work from the opposite sides towards an inner location. So you're pincering in, you're surrounding in on one beta. It means that the beta that you're attacking has to worry about multiple sides, and the defense has to worry about multiple avenues of attack. Because if one side of my pincer is successful, I could quickly shift the quaffle across and attack down that avenue.
Thank you. The other one we're going to talk about is just literally where kind of you position yourself in your beta pair. So you've got two options really. You can either be front and back. You have one person higher up the pitch. Normally your engaged beta ahead, or if you haven't got control, it might be your screen. Or you can stand left and right next to each other. Doesn't matter which one you're doing. Just it's important that you have that idea. Something we try and push at club and at QPL, and presumably do it at Team UK as well still, is you direct left and right and front and back based on your attacking position on the pitch, not necessarily their facing. So if I'm attacking this way, my left is always my left, even if I'm facing the other way, just so that when you're shouting, go left, everyone knows you mean pitch left, not player left. North and south, east and west are always the same functionally, that idea. Okay. We will come on to bubbling, but that's a whole different thing that I know Jay has a little bit of a rant on, which you could enjoy in part 3, when he got told how to do it. So, what is a beta's role on pitch? Okay, we all know they hold the dodgeballs. We all know they throw them at people and it hurts or whatever. But what are they actually trying to do? I think the beta is the most powerful position on pitch, and it is the position on pitch that makes the biggest difference to a team's performance. A great beta can lift average quaffle players to a game win, whereas the inverse isn't true. Elite chasers with a bad beta will really struggle. They are the facilitators in most sets because they are so powerful on both offense and defense. You need to pick your strategy around what your beaters can facilitate, right? If your beaters are really aggressive, then you will be playing a defense that benefits that. You don't want to chain them in. If your beaters are more conservative, you want to be playing against a system that benefits that as well, okay? In terms of what they're looking to do on pitch, on defense, they are looking to cover mainly these things. Dangerous spaces on pitch where the ball is going to go to, where there's a mismatch that you need to cover, and then also looking to try and create turnovers on the quaffle. Okay, you use the beaters in this role because they have a much greater zone of influence. I can only defend someone within my arm's reach. A beater can defend in range of their throwing arm. Okay, so they've got a much larger zone of influence there. On offense, you're looking to leverage the power of the fact that it's an unsymmetrical game. Offense is better than defense. And so the offensive beaters really do just hammer that point home, tapping out the big defenders. Then they can't even do anything, getting rid of the enemy beaters on defense so that the chasers can just drive through. Okay, they might also look to free up a passing range again to just create a safe zone. Jay, anything you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I think it's something that makes Quidditch unique as an invasion game is that beaters really do control the space. And I think that's how you need to see beaters, especially if you're a university team where the level you're playing against maybe won't be as effective as community, is that your beaters control the space on pitch. And the more space that you can create and get into, the better chance you have as winning. Looking at beaters to cause turnovers is fantastic, but that is just a point of being in space. So the more space, the more ground you can cover and control, the more of the game you can control. And that's, I think, how especially new teams should look at their beaters, is it's about controlling territory on pitch and then taking advantage of the territory that you control.
Yeah, it's a good little analogy.
Thanks.
So the power of your beaters obviously is dependent on one thing besides obviously ability, whether or not they have control or not. Okay, and control changes massively throughout games. It ebbs and flows, waxes and wanes, whatever word you want to use on it. But the team that has control and can use the control of bludgers is the team that's going to do better on the whole. Okay, so it's not everything, but it does have a bit of a snowball effect. If I have a bludger and I can use it on offense, I'm more likely to score. If I have a bludger on defense, I'm more likely to make a stop. That being said, because it is such a fast-paced game when it's played properly, teams should be happy to trade control for a goal, because bludger control in and of itself doesn't win you a game. Utilizing control is what does that. I think the only point that really changes where you should prioritize control is when you're at sort of the 15, 16 minute mark of the game, maybe a little bit earlier, and you know it's going to be a swim game, because having control during Snitch on pitch is the be all and end all, really. Okay. But before that, trade up is fine, I think. And if the game isn't close, you don't need it.
How I've always explained it to teams is that bludger control can always be gotten back, whereas a goal can't be undone. And a lot of people sort of misinterpret to think if we concede but then we score, that goal has been undone. But it actually hasn't, because all you've done is even it up again, and I've still needed to use my time, my resources, the actual game time to get that goal back. Whereas bludger control, even if it is difficult to get back, you're not actively punished within the game for losing it. Yes, the game is harder if you don't have bludger control, but I don't lose points and the other team don't gain points for getting it. So you really, really should, especially in a fast-paced, I'm going to say again, university meta, be willing to trade control for goals, because control's probably going to be a little bit easier to get back. Okay, so always be willing to trade that control for goals.
Up until that cap.
Up until 15, 16 minutes.
Right. And then only if it's close. If you're within range or, 3 points either side of range. If you're getting blown out or you're annihilating your opposition, sod it, keep going the same way you're doing. Like, that's fine. But if the game is close and it's going to come down to a snitch catch probably, then yeah, you need to be more conservative in that time period. But give yourself the best chance of not being in that range by trading control for goals earlier. When you don't have control, the communication and the team synergy across positions becomes way more important. Because if you try to attack with one bludger versus two, and your beaters go off well ahead and your chaser flag behind, that mismatch in coordination is going to punish you, because the enemy will just go tap out your two beaters and then come for you, and you've got nothing. So you need to be presenting a unified front functionally. You need to attack with your beaters. Don't have to be in the same space, but they need to be attacking at the same time to draw the opposition's eye in two different places, distract them slightly to give you an opportunity. If you don't, you're just going to lose. Okay, I think
this is another scenario where you can feel like maybe you're over communicating and being annoying to each other. And I know chasers can find it really annoying when beaters are constantly going at them, and beaters can find it really annoying when chasers are going at them. But you have to remember that it's not an argument that you're having. You're not debating who's correct. You should be working together and working on a team. See it less as, you're being told you're wrong, and it's more of an influx of communication. Communication can solve most problems, and information will solve any problem. And the more information your team has, the better chance it has of being successful. Okay, so don't feel like as a quaffle player that the beaters are constantly going at you. They're trying to feed you information so that you can excel at what's expected. And in the same way, beaters shouldn't, maybe as some do, have this superiority complex that quaffle players don't know anything about the game. The more information all players have, the more chance you have of being successful in what you're trying to do.
This is the main reason I've suggested, I'll come to you in a second. This is the main reason I've suggested when we've talked about training and drills and stuff, that you do more stuff as a team rather than position-based drills. Because if you're training as a team, you're getting the same information in that practice. It's not new information in a match later. Okay, you actually understand where people are going, what they're doing, and when you should be doing stuff, because you've practiced it, rather than this being, oh, we've just trained as beaters throwing at each other. What's a chaser, or vice versa? Yes, Dan.
Well, I think you just answered it. What I've basically seen a few times is, in fact, far too many times, is a beater's asking you or trying to get you to do one thing, and you obviously as a chaser are going, but I need to do this. And they're very opposite things. it's maybe because we don't understand what each of us are trying to do, and that's maybe a whole team kind of plan, isn't it? Like I mean, I'm obviously, as a chaser, I'm always going to want to do, score goals and, be attacking and plan for that. But that's part of the reason why I want to do this, is to understand what beaters are trying to do, and we can, because we're all on the same team, isn't it? So
exactly, all on the same team, ideally pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, exactly.
If, as a throw-in, if you do have that and your beater's telling you one thing and your chaser's doing another, right? Get your coach to make a decision very quickly what you should be doing, or capitulate and just do what they're saying, or get them just better to do one thing than two half things.
Genuinely, I'd say it's one of, even though, to go back on what I said, chasers need to concede the point and do what the beater's doing, because if chasers decide they're going to do their own thing and the beater doesn't agree, you will just lose. Whereas if you swallow your ego and you might disagree with what the beater's doing, even if it's wrong, like James said, if you're all pulling in the same direction, you've got a less chance of getting absolutely mullered because of the sort of cone of influence that a beater has on the pitch and the game.
Yeah. So just commit to the bad decision they're making then.
Exactly.
If you can't convince them quickly to do something different, yes.
Okay.
Because you're just going to get filled in otherwise. I think I should attack. Beater saying, don't attack, we haven't got a bludger, and you attack. You're going to lose. Or the actual worst case scenario is you score in this one meaningless game or at training or whatever, and then you think, oh, confirmation bias. I scored that time, I ignored my beater. I'll do it again. And then Albert just comes and goes, bang, and you're dead. Yeah.
Cherished memories.
Cool. So how are we deploying beaters? We obviously, as active players and coaches and whatever at the moment, have a preference for what we do in terms of how we deploy our beaters, but that is based on who we play with. Your players will be different. So the thing you need to think of are the two on screen now and the one I'm going to show in a sec. But where are you putting your beaters? What is their zone of influence on the pitch? And then what are their priorities? Okay, you need to think of those three things as a whole team, offense and defense, and think what matches up to what you're trying to do. So location's pretty straightforward. If you split and this is all for defense particularly, when you split the pitch into sort of thirds, coming backwards, right, where are you actually going to put your beaters? Are they going to be at your hoops? Are they going to be outside of your keeper zone? Are they going to be at halfway? Okay, how aggressive, how high up the pitch are you going to put them? Right, and that needs to be matched by your chaser defense. There's no point having your beaters at halfway your beaters at halfway and all your chasers at hoops, because there's just too much space. Your zone of influence determines more or less your left and right positioning and is matched to your location. If I'm higher up the pitch, my zone of influence is higher and I'm leaving space behind me. If my zone is in the middle, I'm stronger there, but I'm, again, weaker top and bottom. And also it comes down to which set-handedness your beaters are. Right? A double right-handed beat set has a different zone of influence on the pitch, an easier throwing angle than a left and right set or a double left-handed set. Okay, we'll show that in a sec, because it's way harder to throw over the shoulder of which you are handed. So if I'm a right-handed beater, it's really easy for me to throw right to left. It's very hard for me to throw quickly left to right. So you need to position yourself to account, your locational pitch to account for your zone of influence. We'll see that in the diagram in a sec. And then your priorities are pretty straightforward. Are you going to focus on quaffle? Are you looking to try and take out the primary carrier, the first receiver, the second receiver, the other beaters? What are you trying to do as a defensive set of beaters? Who are your priorities? Where do you need to actively be looking? Okay, so regardless of what defensive system you use, regardless of where you put your beaters, you need to consider these 3 points.
No, I think that's sewed it up pretty nicely. Let's keep on tracking.
Keep on track. Right, so I've got 3 styles of defensive beating here. Okay, or beating on defense, not defensive. So our first one is hyper-aggressive, high press, full energy, full intensity. So how are you going to set that up? You're going to set your beaters just up inside the halfway, and your engage beater is going to be looking to hit the quaffle carrier. Your free beater is going to be looking to take the first receiver, and you're literally just going to try and press them as soon as they come into your half. It's obviously very aggressive. It leaves you slightly more vulnerable later. When you're going to use this, this gets used a lot when there is a significant skill disparity between the two teams. When your team is much better, the higher up you can force a turnover, and you're more likely to because you're a better team at that point. The higher up the pitch you get the ball, the easier it is to score, and the score time, you can rack up points very quickly, right? So if you are much better, you can afford to be more aggressive and set your defenders higher to generate a turnover higher to go on, okay? It can cause a lot of panic in your distributors. That's a really good strength of this. If as soon as you cross the halfway, there's a beta running at you, that is concerning as a quaffle carrier, right? And it makes your decision-making time drastically reduced, which means you're more likely to make a bad decision. And that's really powerful as a defensive team. We've seen that in games and at training. So in games, you can think of things like LQC versus Bond Runners at EQC the year before, right? They just went straight at the distributors, forcing an early pass, okay, which then was able to be picked off because they knew that it was coming early. They were set up to do that. Okay, and it puts Seb's, in this situation's decision-making process, under a lot more pressure a lot earlier than he was otherwise used to. Okay, you see that now also in the UK when you have lock and press sets where the beaters just essentially blitz out at you. The weakness of this is, I think, pretty obvious. You've set your beaters really high. If they miss, they are massively out of position on defense. Okay, because if they get deflection or whatever, like you're just out of the game at that point as a beater, and you're more likely to throw the bludger towards their hoops, which means they're going to reclaim that quite easily. Okay, so you do need to make sure you are accurate in this throw. I think good examples of this within the UK sort of sphere, who can do this really well, are people like Lucy Q, Mike Yorridge from Raptors / now SQC, I guess, Angie Orlak from Werewolves, and Karina Werner. I think these players all can play that aggressive role and set up a high press situation really well. So it's going to look.
Can you do this without control?
You can. You probably shouldn't.
Good luck
Because
to you if
you said the free beta presses a primary passing option. But if you ain't got a ball,
then you're probably not going to do this. No.
I would recommend doing it without control.
So we're talking about all of these with control at the moment. Okay, we'll come on to the adaptation later. But yeah, you're not going to do this when you don't have control, unless their beaters are awful and your beater's exceptional. In which case, they might be able to cover two people, but that doesn't happen, right?
While we're on there, sorry, just really, I know this is a beating video, but beaters, so this doesn't happen to you, get your main distributors used to throwing while under pressure from a beater. Because some of the throws we see under pressure are just absolutely terrible at the moment within the game. So that's a really simple drill that you have, is a beater rushes out towards the quaffle carrier and they just have to make a pass. This is also good for the beater because you get a good frame of reference of how close you need to be to actually make the hit, because the further that I can throw and make a hit, the even less time I'm giving the quaffle carrier to make a decision. But yeah, beaters, get your quaffle carriers comfortable in throwing the ball while they're getting absolutely rocketed, and you will have a much more coherent passing line as a team.
So you can see on the screen kind of the zone of influence. That's the green semicircles. That's where the beater is looking at, and that's where they could throw towards, and what they're looking to try and do, and where they are kind of on pitch. And as you can see, it's a lot higher than a lot of teams would set up. There's also this clip, if this works, hopefully. So here, right, the beaters are incredibly aggressive. We have Jacopo over here, set up incredibly high. Lucy just inside the half, again, trying to set up. Okay, that is hard to get out of. They have to throw long, which I believe is what happens in this situation. Yeah. High, at halfway, nowhere to go, chucks it long, turnover, we score off the counter.
Easy,
okay. So when your team is significantly better, this is a good mode of attack, okay? But only with control. Right, the next one I think is one people are more familiar with now and will see more often. All right, this is the current, I would suggest, sort of meta defense and usage of beaters within the UK at the moment. And we call it the engage and press, but it doesn't super matter. But essentially, you set up just outside your zone, sort of halfway between keeper zone and halfway line, adjusted slightly by how confident you are feeling in the matchup. And your engage beater looks to actively draw on the offensive beater and engage and trade. And they're looking to fight, make that beater fight, get both of them out, which then allows your free beater to react to that duel and go and tap out the unarmed beater on offense. Okay, at which point 3 out of the 4 beaters are out of the play, and you are just left with what was your free beater as the only armed beater in the game. Okay. And then they can go and sweep up any chasers they get. So your engaged beaters trade, and then your free beater taps out the spare beater, and you play from that. What this does do is it creates a no bludger defense situation for a short period of time as your free beater looks to mop up the other beater. You need to trust your chaser defense for that small amount of time to allow your beater to recover. Okay, and what that will do is it will mean you get all 3 bludgers and then with no beaters for the follow-up defense. So yeah, you might concede, but if you gang up on them, it's harder to score in that situation. But you really, really, really should score on the follow-up attack. Okay, and potentially make a better stop in the next defense.
I was going to say, a lot of teams really worry if they're put in a scenario where they don't have their bludgers on defense and rely only on chasers. But in this scenario, you have to think the other team isn't going to have any bludgers either. So it does just come down to quaffle player versus quaffle player. And it really isn't the time you think. We're not saying you're going to have to hold a defense for 30 seconds here. You're going to have to hold your defense for 5 seconds. And 1 or 2 of those seconds are going to be the offense deciding what they should do. So you really should be confident to defend for that amount of time. And if you're not in training, it's still good practice. Because if you can defend semi-effectively without bludgers, then when you've got bludgers, you're going to be an absolute world beater, aren't you? So don't be afraid to defend without bludgers for a small window of time.
That's when we're going to look to use this when we have sort of equal beaters to your opposition and your supporting chasers are able to make a stop. If you're going to concede the goal every time with no chance of defense, then maybe this isn't for you. But if you can make that stop 40% of the time, I think this system's really good. I think some good examples of this within the UK are Dantrick and Bilorage. I think they hold this line really well. And Kerry Aziz from Southampton does this really well. They're just very good at absorbing that pressure and making the throw first and then reacting towards the follow-up. Okay, so this is kind of how it looks on pitch. Okay, our engaged beater is looking to trade, blue to red, and then our free beater reacts to that duel and goes immediately to tap out this other beater. Okay, so that does create a situation where there's no beaters on quaffle. That is fine because you're trusting your chasers to make some kind of stop and putting yourself in a position that next offense will be much, much easier for you. Okay, and we have this from the UK versus France. So France in possession.
It all started so well.
It did, it really did. Okay, so we've got here Mikey Orridge and Alex Carpenter on defense, set up outside their half. Mikey is facing off against the France beater. Alex is supporting as the free beater. Mikey and the France beater trade. Okay, they throw at each other. And Carpenter goes for the free beater here. Okay. Right. It does actually happen. The France makes a thing, but there's a no chaser defense. All the bludgers are out of play. And the UK make a very big stop. Eventually. 3rd time lucky. Yeah, got it. Okay. Right. And you'll see in a sec, all the bludgers come back to us. And we trade off. Okay, and we end this with possession still. Fresh beaters on. Good offense, off we go. Okay, but it starts with this trade and then Carpenter immediately going for the spare beater. If Alex goes for the quaffle, this France beater is going to just pick up all the spare bludgers and we're in no better situation. We're just down a beater. Okay, that's why we're looking to set for this. Okay, and the final one we're going to look at for defense is hoop defense. And I've just called it Norway because it's the team that traditionally have played this really well. For this defense, we're going to set our beaters much deeper on the pitch. They're going to be basically just in their zone at their hoops, position to cover. And then they're going to look to press out from there when the opportunity arises. I think this is a really strong defensive positioning when you're trying to maximize control, when you're really wanting to be conservative with it, because your tap-in time as a beta, your recovery time is much stronger. You're not having to run the whole half the length of the pitch to get back into the play. You're literally still there already. And so if I'm the weaker team on pitch, this is something I might look to try and do, because it also draws the opposition on a bit more. It's also incredibly hard to get control off this for that reason. If I'm beat, I just drop my stuff, tap back in, I'm back in the game straight away. A weakness of this, unfortunately, is that it does allow the team to get further forward into a shooting position. It does mean if you do miss, you are probably conceding the goal, but it just puts a lot more pressure on people to be creative. Right? It's hard to be creative around a box, essentially. And I think good examples of this in the UK are Alice Walker from Werewolves and Jacopo from LQC do this style of defense really well. But the best one is Mette Sandal from Team Norway, which is why Norway do it. So this is kind of what it looks like on pitch. Their zone of influence is such that they're looking all in the same direction. They're all focused here. And you can see their zone of influence overlaps, which means if one of them does get beat out, they're not giving up any space. Right? The other one is still there to cover. And that's really important. If they were split focus and one went out, the opposition would easily score. And again, we've got this is Norway versus France, I think.
I think the thing to bear in mind is this is the sort of one of the lowest risk defenses that you can play. You're not actually giving, you're sacrificing creativity for safety on defense here, is the way to look at it. But I think something else to bear in mind is that this isn't a lazy defense. Sometimes when myself and James see this played, beaters use it as an excuse to just stand by the hoops and not do anything. You still need to be active and reactive to what the offense is doing. You're just doing it from a safer position. So just because maybe this is less energy sapping doesn't mean it's any less important to the play. You can't afford to switch off, because when you need to throw in this defense, you really need to throw and throw well.
So we've got France on the ball, Norway with control. Okay. They are a bit high to start with, but they are going to sink back slightly. If you look, they're working as that pair still. They're really only sort of 6 meters from the hoop. They're double visioned on the quaffle. Right. Again, double vision still there, always looking. And then make the trades. It does unfortunately go wrong for them this time, but the situation is such that they are there. And it's only because I actually think the France beater cheats and passes after beat. But what can you do? Doesn't have to recover. But the idea is you sit there, fan round, double coverage, make the opposition be creative to beat you. And that is harder than you would think on it. Adaptations for one bludger on defense. When you have one bludger on defense, your positioning of your engage and your free beater probably swaps over. Normally, you would have your engage beater at the front. When you've only got one bludger, you want your engage beater to be sat further back of the two, and you use your free beater as a screen. You are actively looking to prioritize the quaffle on defense, because your chance of making a bludger turnover with only one is quite low. So you are just trying to stop the quaffle from scoring when you're on defense. But that doesn't mean you can't capitalize if they screw it up, right? If they overcommit and you are able to make a play, go for it. So it is a bit on adjusting on the fly, but we've got to be looking first and foremost to stopping the quaffle. The engaged beater needs to assume they're going to be targeted, they're going to be attacked, and so they need to be ready to do something with their bludger. Okay, that might be make the beat first, throw on the front foot, always a good strategy, or get ready to get rid of your bludger to safety. So a pass to your spare beater, to your free beater, or throw it back. Something Louis from Belgium is very good at doing. He knows he's going to get attacked as a beater, so he's always looking to throw it back. And he knows he's going to recover on because he's fast. Right? But he knows that the worst thing you can do as the engaged beater, the only armed beater on your defense, is just stand there, freeze, get hit, and then wonder why your team conceded. Right? Have a plan before you get into that position. And I say your free beater is looking to screen. Okay, that means they need to be blocking the direct route of the enemy beaters to your engaged beater. They need to get in the way, slow them down, make them do something, be scrappy. So you've got your free beaters in front as one option, as we say, screening, or as a passing option to the side, so that if you are engaged, you can shift it on. That is where we're going to leave this first part of the video. Next video, we will cover offensive plays and some regaining of control. Really hope you found this video helpful. Please let us know. You can find this on our YouTube channel or on our website, backtoops.com. Thank you for your time. Say bye, Jay.
Goodbye.
Say bye, Dan.
Bye, Dan.